After Jacob Jones had lived at Lewes and grown up at 18 years old, he went to Dover. And this was a result of the long relationship between James Sykes Sr., his financial guardian, and Penelope Holt Jones, who had worked with Sykes all these years with the income and how to manage the income and such. Jacob went up to Dover to be apprenticed to James Sykes Jr., who was a physician, had been practicing in Dover for about 4 years, and was going to apprentice Jacob in medicine.
My understanding is he attended medical lectures for 4 years, which means he would have done pretty much a full course of lectures. He did not have an MD degree, but in those days, very few physicians did.
He came back in 1789 to not only start his practice in Dover as a physician, probably in association with James Sykes Jr., but also at that time, age 21, to inherit his farm and also the land all around the farm that he had had. And so he was a rich young physician at the time. In 1792, just before James Sykes Sr. died, Jacob Jones married his daughter, Ann Sykes, the sister of James Sykes Jr., to whom he had been apprenticed. Unfortunately, within 8 months, Ann died. And so now Jacob lost connection with any family he'd ever had. His original family had long gone. Penelope Holt Jones had gone, his Holt family, and now his connection with the Sykes family had gone. So Jacob was really adrift.
He was working on a career in medicine for a good while. And then after that, he tried law, which also didn't seem to take with his energy or his personality.
He stopped being a doctor. He gave up that profession, dabbled in law for a while, became a partner in a store for a while, but he was just drifting. And then when the Delaware Courts of Chancellery were established in 1793, the governor appointed Jacob as a clerk to that court. So at least he had a position in society.
After the Revolutionary War, where we gained our independence, the new leadership of the country realized that a standing militia and a standing navy, the Continental Navy, was very expensive to maintain. So because of the cost, they decided to disband the Continental Militia, disband the Continental Navy, and we went 10 years without any protection of our own, relying on allies and going so far as to pay off our enemies, particularly the Barbary Corsairs of the North African states of Tripoli, Algiers, Morocco. That was fine for a while, but finally, President George Washington decided that we need a United States Navy of our own, and he signed the Naval Armament Act of 1794, commissioning 6 new United States Navy frigates. Congress, Chesapeake, Constellation, United States, President, and of course, Constitution. 6 cities on the East Coast were chosen to build the ships. The great city of Boston, Massachusetts, would be building the one named Constitution. The keel was laid in 1795 in a shipyard run by a man named Edmund Hart, and the ship was launched on October 21st, 1797.
Ideas of joining the Navy, maybe a childhood dream of Jacob's, came up, and he started visiting Philadelphia, where much of the Navy was based, probably looking for a job. And in November of 1795, coming back from Philadelphia on a coach, he happened to meet Janet Moore. And Janet Moore was the daughter of the British consul in Newport. And she was coming to Dover to live with her aunt and visit her aunt for a while, Anne Ridgely, in the Ridgely house on Dover Green. And it's still there today. It was love at first sight and a whirlwind courtship. They met on the coach in November. They were married the following May. They bought a farm and they moved to their farm in the spring of 1797. And Jacob apparently had given up all thoughts of going into the Navy. A son, William, was born, and in 1798, they took him up to Newport to meet his grandparents. But at that time, just at that time, the quasi-war with France broke out. And again, Jacob started thinking about going into the Navy. Now, his family certainly wasn't for that, and the Ridgely family wasn't for that, but that didn't deter Jacob, because in 1799, Jacob received a warrant as a midshipman in the Navy through the governor of Delaware, signed by John Adams. 31 years of age with everything he wanted. And then all of a sudden, he gives it all up to become a midshipman in the Navy with 12 and 13 and 16-year-old boys. So there's no doubt that that was what he wanted to do. He was certainly interested in his wife, but he was not interested in sitting around in a country house and having part ownership in a store, not being a businessman. He clearly wanted to go in the Navy. And my point is, he got that from living in Lewes during the Revolution. Thomas McDonough and Jacob Jones entered the Navy almost at the same time, 1799. Jones was 31, McDonough was 16. The Navy had in those days a sloop which was called the Ganges. Young midshipmen went there for a very short period of time, and then they went to another ship. McDonough stayed on the Ganges for quite a while. Jones went almost immediately to Barry's ship, the United States. And he was mentored on that ship by Stephen Decatur, who, they say, quote, showed him the ropes.
Young Stephen is kind of a tough kid, and his mother, I think, wants him to become an Episcopal minister, which clearly isn't in the cards for him. He does go to the Episcopal Academy, but spends most of his time in fistfights across the street. So then they're looking for an outlet for him, and the one occupation they find is working with the builders of the USS United States. He goes over to New Jersey to cut the timber, oversee the cutting of the timber. He's working essentially in a merchant house that's building this ship. His father, meanwhile, has been given command of the USS Philadelphia, a ship built by the merchants of Philadelphia to help protect American commerce. It's not one of the original 6 frigates that are commissioned by Congress. Instead, merchants get together and say, we'll build a frigate for the United States government. And so the Philadelphia is the one that Stephen Decatur Sr. will command. Stephen Decatur Jr. is cutting the timber for the United States. Interestingly enough, Stephen Decatur Jr. will burn the Philadelphia in Tripoli Harbor and will also command the United States in the War of 1812, bringing it to victory over the Macedonian in the fall of 1812.
Stephen Decatur said that he had written with pencil the name of every rope and line on the ship, where it came down and was tied to the gunwale or the bollard or whatever else there was on the ship to tie it to. And then when the sailors were ordered to handle that line, Midshipman Jones could go there and know where it was and assure that they were on the right line. So he was learning the ropes from Stephen Decatur.